Welcome to Speakeasy Spirits. Today's a pretty special day because I'm not just making cocktails for myself, I'm making cocktails for a friend's wedding. My wife and I have been friends with the bride and groom for years, so when they announced they were getting married, I had to volunteer to bartend their wedding. But not only that, I wanted to make them custom bride and groom cocktails, something that would really fit their tastes and personality. Both these cocktails came out so good that I'm going to share them with you here today. The groom likes whiskey, but it's also a summertime wedding, so I knew that it had to combine bourbon, but also be refreshing. What I came up with was a variation on a blood and sand, replacing the orange juice with a lemon, but keeping the cherry and vermouth, putting it somewhere between a whiskey sour and the blood and sand. Because the bride and groom are both big fans of Prince, we decided to call it Under the Cherry Moon. Since there's going to be over 100 guests at the wedding, I wanted to keep the costs down, so for our bourbon, we're going to start with Evan Williams Bottled and Bond. Then we'll also add cherry herring liqueur and a sweet vermouth. First, let's start with 1 ounce of lemon juice. Normally a blood and sand is going to be a stirred cocktail, but because I'm trying to speed up the process for 100 wedding guests, we're going to make this a shaken cocktail. Now we're going to add 1 ounce of bourbon. This is a bottled and bond bourbon, so it is 100 proof or 50% alcohol. Now we'll use 3/4 of an ounce of cherry liqueur. This is where the sweetness is going to come from. And 3/4 of an ounce of a sweet vermouth. And last, let's add 2 dashes of cherry bitters. Now we're going to shake that over ice for about 10 seconds. And because it's going to be a hot day, the wedding's this weekend, and today it's 97 degrees outside, we're going to pour this over 1 large cube to keep it cold. And there you have Under the Cherry Moon. Cherry and lemon are such a nice combination. It's tart and sweet, but the 100 proof bottled and bond bourbon is able to stand up to those powerful flavors. And the vermouth is adding some really nice herbal notes. With the tartness of the lemon and the tannins of the vermouth, this kind of reminds me of a New York sour. I did build the specs of this recipe around the day being really hot, so I went heavy on the lemon. If you're making this indoors, air conditioned, maybe sometime during the winter, you could cut back on the lemon to maybe 3/4 of an ounce and add an extra 1/2 ounce of the bourbon. For the bride's cocktail, I really wanted to celebrate her Greek heritage. After a lot of research, I really couldn't find a cocktail that originated in Greece, but Greece does have a lot of its own spirits and unique flavors, so I decided to try and combine some of those into the bride's cocktail. For the base spirit, we're going to be using Metaxa. This is a spiced Greek brandy. It comes in several different variations. This one is the 7. It's got pretty wide distribution in the US, so you should be able to find a bottle locally. When I think about the flavors of Greece, my mind goes straight to pistachios and honey, the flavors of baklava. I was able to find this pistachio cream liqueur, and we're going to combine that with some honey syrup to replicate that baklava flavor. And then we're going to round the whole thing out with some elderflower liqueur. This is going to be a shaken cocktail, and we're going to start with 3/4 of an ounce of the Metaxa 7. Now 1/2 ounce of the pistachio cream liqueur. This may seem like a hard to find ingredient, but I've seen it at multiple liquor stores in my area, and I've also seen several brands of pistachio liqueurs, so you'll probably be able to find this locally. And we're going to add half an ounce of the elderflower liqueur. This is going to bring in some sweetness, a little brightness, and some nice floral notes. The Saint Germain is adding some sweetness, so we don't want to put too much honey in there. We're going to use just a 1/4 ounce of honey syrup for the flavor. And honey syrup is just a combination of honey and water. I make mine at 2 parts honey to 1 part water. And last, we need 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. And now the final ingredient. We can't say we combined the flavors of Greece without adding some ouzo. I've put some ouzo in a dasher bottle, and we're just going to add 2 dashes. The anise note of the ouzo is going to add just a little complexity and really round out the drink. Now we'll shake that over ice. We're going to serve that in a coupe glass. And there you have the Parthenon, all the flavors of Greece in a glass. I really love this cocktail. Lemon and honey is already such a classic combination, but then you add in the nuttiness of the pistachio liqueur, the spices of the metaxa, and the floral notes of the Saint Germain elderflower, and it just comes together in something amazing. No one flavor is the star of the show, but they also aren't fighting each other. It's just a harmonious combination that's delicious and easy to drink. I didn't do garnishes on either of these drinks since I'm trying to do them as fast as possible to serve 100 people. But if you wanted to garnish the Parthenon, I would say a few drops of lavender bitters on top. The bitters are going to sit on the foam on the top of the drink, and they're going to provide a beautiful aroma. And that's the bride and groom cocktails for the wedding. Under the Cherry Moon, a bourbon cherry sour, and Parthenon, trying to combine all the flavors of Greece in a glass. Because the bride's heritage is Greek and the groom was born in the Philippines and grew up in Hawaii, I wanted to try and combine those flavors. So I'm combining a Greek white wine with a homemade wine made with the fruits of the Philippines. It's going to have mango, pineapple, soursop, starfruit, dragon fruit. But for that recipe, you're going to have to tune into my other YouTube channel, where I'm focusing on making wines, beers, meads, and ciders at home. As I film this video, that channel's not quite ready yet, so I can't give you a link, but I'll be sure to announce it in my next video, and I'll go back and put a link in this video. I hope you liked the video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. Now I've got a wedding to go to. We'll see you next time.